have heard this morning from these two terrific panels that decarbonizing building energy use and decarbonizing transportation energy use are interdependent with decarbonizing electricity. So we need a lot more electrification, but we really can't decarbonize the grid unless we also decarbonize energy use in buildings and transportation. So it's actually a great lead-in to our panel this afternoon talking about the grid of the future. I'm just going to say a couple of things about the ISO, the California Independent System Operator, we just call it the ISO, has responsibility to ensure reliable electric supply across most of California. We operate the grid, we plan transmission, and we operate the $8 billion wholesale electricity market in the state. We do that by forecasting demand for electricity and then dispatching the lowest cost generators to meet that demand every 5 minutes. We calculate the price of power at more than 4,000 locations, again, every 5 minutes. That all supports about 28,000 market transactions a day. So we both operate the grid, operate the market. We at the ISO think that the future of electricity, the future of electric service is decarbonized and decentralized. So our board, our management, the 600 people on our staff are all highly motivated to be one of the first grid operators in the world to figure out how to operate a low carbon grid. By 2030, it's very likely California will get more than 60% of its electricity from renewable sources, on the way to 100%. There are some significant engineering challenges along that trajectory, and it's very important not to underestimate them. But what's perhaps even more important is changes in policy and changes in the way that we think about renewables along the way. So to promote discussion of some of the policy changes and changes in thinking that are needed, we've developed a paper called Electricity 2030 that outlines 8 trends that we see and key tasks for the next several years. So I'm just going to mention 4 of them. So energy efficiency focus doesn't change. That remains job number 1. We just will not be able to meet our greenhouse gas goals unless we figure out ways to develop and implement ways to use energy much more efficiently. Second, gas generators are going to run much less as the grid is modernized. California urgently needs a plan for the orderly retirement of gas-fired generation, which can help minimize stranding fossil assets, but also keep the gas generators that we will need for some time financially viable. Third, demand will become as important as supply in balancing the system. So distribution service operators, distribution grid operators, energy service providers will manage residential, commercial, and industrial devices, more flexible and controllable load to help us keep the grid balanced all the time with basically very low cost and low carbon resources. And fourth, the entire electricity system of the future, certainly the grid of the future, is going to be shaped by the variable output of wind and solar. So ready access to a much larger pool of wind resources and solar resources, geothermal resources, hydroelectric resources than is available in California becomes absolutely essential as we go beyond 60 and 70% renewables. As we'll hear from Dr. Casey in a moment, renewable resources are capable of providing what we call essential reliability services. That's another key aspect of decarbonizing and making this transition to a low-carbon grid. But to do that, power purchase agreements are going to have to change. The Public Utilities Commission is going to have to develop different agreements with generators that compensate them for providing all these non-power services, reactive power and frequency response and other things like that. And along that same line, in terms of changing the way that we think about renewables, we have to, in my opinion, jettison and certainly go beyond the renewable portfolio standard. RPS is an artifact of fossil-based grids. But a low-carbon grid, essentially all the procurement is going to be renewable. So we're going to have to be able to incorporate all clean resources on a comparable footing. So that means large-scale solar, rooftop photovoltaics behind the meter, small hydro, large hydro, geothermal, all clean resources, demand response, storage, all of those resources are going to have to be treated on a comparable footing. As long as we have a renewable portfolio standard, that makes it very, very difficult to do that.